Namaste, my friends. My name is Dr. Jason Calva. I'm a licensed acupuncturist and a pranic healing instructor. I am going to talk about for the next, hopefully, 10 to 20 minutes about what pranic healing is and how learning it can influence your life, impact your spiritual development, your physical, emotional health, and then also so you have a better understanding of when you learn pranic healing, how do the levels of pranic healing work, what order should you learn them in, and things like that. So let's dive in here. Level 1 of pranic healing is called basic pranic healing because it's the base or the foundation that everything else you learn kind of comes afterwards. So before you learn how to do lots of advanced meditations and things like that, you first have to have a really good understanding of our energy body and how energy kind of flows in and out of our energy centers that are called chakras, how it affects our physical and emotional health. And so what you learn in level 1 of pranic healing is a lot of what we call the energy anatomy. So when you're understanding the energy system, you have layers inside of your body that we call the aura. So you have like an inner aura, an outer aura, and then you have the chakras or the energy centers inside of that all influence your physical and emotional well-being. One of the things that once you understand that there are 11 major chakras or energy centers in the body, and we kind of go over why do we talk about 11 major centers in pranic healing instead of there being only 7 in traditional yoga. So we go through all of those kinds of things, and then we'll teach you how to actually scan or to feel what those chakras are doing in the body. If you're going to work on somebody, traditionally they would say, I'm going to balance the chakras. So for us in pranic healing, that means something very different as you go along the practices and you take the different levels. So in level 1 of pranic healing, we're trying to sensitize the hands so that they can feel prana or subtle energy. Prana is the same word as chi or vital energy or vital breath, or in Japan they call it ki, so that's where you get Rei Ki from, or Qi Gong in China. So prana is the vital energy that we talk about usually from the Indian perspective. And so that's why in pranic healing we deal with chakras and things like that too, because it goes hand in hand with yogic philosophy. Now, when you can sensitize your hands to feel prana or subtle energy, then what we try and do is to scan on someone else's body or your own, is there too much energy somewhere? We call that congestion, or is there not enough and that energy center is depleted? For example, we call this the throat chakra. Now, if this is really, really weak, that means that there's not a lot of vital energy going into all of the areas that my throat would work on. So I might have a really weak, soft voice, or I could have a cough, I could have a sore throat, it might affect my thyroid. There's all sorts of things that the throat chakra energizes that can throw off our physiological health. So what you can do is when you can feel that there's too much energy, we teach you how to sweep or clear out those blockages in a chakra. And then once the area is clean, then how to send fresh vital energy or energizing that area. So you want to assess first, is there too much energy and I really need to focus on getting too much of that stuff out, or is there not enough energy and I have to spend more time trying to send fresh energy from the surroundings through my body and into another person. So that brings up parts of what we call energy hygiene. So energy hygiene is understanding how does energy move and flow between two people or yourself in the room around you. Now, most of us have probably had the experience when you meet somebody and you immediately either like them right away, that means there's a good flow of energy, or you immediately are like, I don't know if I want to be around this person. And so that means that there's not a really good flow of prana or life force energy between you and that person. Or you can walk into a place and it could be like, wow, it feels so beautiful in here. I just feel so at peace and so tranquil. That is where the energy around you feels really good. And so the transference that happens from your surroundings and your body feels good. And we've also been in places where you feel like it's a little sticky or heavy and you kind of start to close up a little bit because you don't feel good absorbing the energy from that space around you. So majority of us, when you're out in nature, when you usually feel really, really good too. That's because there's a lot of fresh prana that you're getting from the sun, from the air, and from the earth that kind of re-energizes your body naturally. So again, in level 1 of pranic healing, what we do is try to learn how to tune in or tap into that energy that's just like a sea of energy all around us. So once you can tune into that, when you're working on somebody, you're not depleting your own inner energy when you work on somebody. You are going to make it so that the energy flows through you so that you don't become drained or depleted when you're working with other people. So a lot of times when you have either family members or people that you work with, you might have the term that's like an energy vampire. When you're around them, it just feels very draining or fatiguing. So when you know how that's happening energetically, then there's different things you can do to kind of charge up your own batteries and also make it so you can kind of disconnect from that person so that their energy is no longer draining or depleting you. All of that has to do with what we call energy hygiene. How is energy moving and flowing between us so that you don't feel like you're contaminated by working on lots of other people. Now, if you're very energetically sensitive or you're very empathic, you'll notice that as soon as you start doing energy hygiene, why in pranic healing we deal with, if you're going to sweep on somebody, for example, you don't want to take the old stale energy and just throw it right on the floor. We put it into salt water, because salt water can kind of hold, contain, or break down that old stale energy. Then you can just flush it and it doesn't linger around the room. And then we also use like hand sprays, or it's alcohol with like lavender in it, to break apart any energy on your hands so that you're not absorbing it into the hands and into the organs yourself. Once you really understand how to work on other people, how to bring energy into your body, that's when we'll also teach you how to do self-healing. So anytime you're feeling low, your energy is feeling kind of stuck or murky, either it's because of physical things, like external things, like it's germs or bacteria or allergies and dust, or it could be internal, where you're so stressed out and you're so fixated on something that's bothering you that it's making this kind of congestion happen in your energy body, so the energy can't flow properly in or out or up or down or kind of distribute anywhere. So when you know what's going on, a lot of us will also feel that usually, like in this area here is our solar plexus. So your solar plexus chakra is what we usually will clean out in almost every single protocol that we use in pranic healing. So once you know what's stressing you out and that there's an energy blockage, you can start to work on yourself to sweep those blockages out so that it's easier to kind of like, okay, how do I do some breathing? How do I calm down? How do I refocus to get throughout my day? The other thing was where I just said that there's pranic healing protocols, is so if you don't feel like you're a very sensitive person to like energy or other people or things like that, or you're brand new into spiritual concepts, one of the beautiful things about pranic healing is that the founder, Master Choa Kok Sui, he was a chemical engineer, and so he thought about everything very analytically and wanted everything to make sense. And so what he used to do in the Philippines was take someone with a certain condition or an ailment, say if they had asthma, and bring it to someone who was like a medical intuitive, who could look at their body and kind of see where the energies were blocked and where they weren't flowing, and he would take notes at whatever that medical intuitive said. And so he would take that same person to another medical intuitive and ask them the same questions, like what's going on in their lungs, what's happening in these energy centers, and he would take notes and basically cross-examine the two of them together and say like, okay, even though there were some differences, most of the time they were saying you needed to work on these energy centers, how to clean the blockages out, how to send fresh energy in. And so he started to write protocols for the rest of us who can't see energy, who aren't medical intuitives, to know when I'm walking into a room with a patient, what do I do to make them feel better? So all I have to do is follow a step-by-step cookbook approach, and as long as I follow the instructions and the guidance, then the person usually will start to feel better after a few sessions with pranic healing. Once you understand the foundation of what it is to do energy work, that's when you can start to learn about the spiritual principles. So not only does energy move and flow through our bodies to make it so that we're physically stronger, but how do we make it so that we also feel more spiritually connected to our friends, our families, just kind of to the world around us? And so you'll learn different meditations. One of them is called meditation on twin hearts. And so it's a loving kindness, or a metta meditation is what they call it in Buddhism, where you focus on gratitude, on love, and how that energy can kind of move into your body. And so you can kind of radiate that love and blessings to your friends, your family. And as that energy kind of comes in, it starts to open your heart, which makes you more loving, more compassionate, but it also opens up your crown center to make you more intuitive, to feel like you have more of a strong spiritual connection. And so once you have a strong spiritual connection, you feel that need or the desire to want to help lots of other people. And so that is the foundation in level 1 of pranic healing, what are the guidelines, like how should we live properly, how should we eat, how should we behave as healers or as spiritual practitioners, so that when you go to advanced pranic healing, pranic psychotherapy, crystal healing, and eventually to what's called orthotic yoga, which is like the peak of our spiritual school, how all of those things are slowly kind of guiding you and increasing your energy level to be able to handle those new techniques that you learn in the other classes. After you've been practicing pranic healing for a little while and you want to move on to the level 2 class, or maybe you're in a place where the level 1 and 2 class are offered together, let me explain how that would work out and how that's good. So in other schools that I've trained in before, they would usually tell you, you want to learn level 1, practice for 6 months to a year, then move on to level 2, or whatever your comfort level is. Now, for pranic healing, it's a little bit different, because when you learn advanced pranic healing, or level 2, it's done in a way that it doesn't feel like you're completely unlearning anything. It just adds to everything that you're already understanding from level 1 of pranic healing. Once you start learning pranic healing and becoming more comfortable with it, the biggest gap is when you go from basic pranic healing to advanced pranic healing. Now that to me is because everything you learn in advanced pranic healing is what makes it different from just about every other spiritual system or energy healing system out there. In advanced pranic healing, that's when you're learning to deal with color prana. So instead of it being like an ordinary white light that you're using like regular prana, white prana in basic pranic healing, in advanced pranic healing, you're able to give the parts of the body or the different chakras the very specific energy that they need, so they can actually assimilate that faster and absorb the energy quicker, so that the healing happens much faster than it does in level 1 of pranic healing. Level 1 of pranic healing, or white light, is like if you take a good multivitamin. Your body kind of takes it in, breaks down what it doesn't need, that just comes out as waste, and then what you do need, your body absorbs or assimilates. Now, if you need something very specific, say you only need vitamin B, now if you take a B complex vitamin, your body will absorb that much faster because it's very specific to the nutrients that you're lacking. So similarly, if you're using ordinary white light, your body will still know what to do with it, but if you're using a specific color prana in different parts of the body, and if you're trained how to use them safely and effectively, that means that how much time it takes to heal somebody, say in a pranic healing level 1, might take you an hour to work on somebody, now you can get the same results in like 20 minutes. So it speeds up what you can do, but also if you spend that hour with somebody, it's as if you did like 5-6 sessions of level 1 of pranic healing than you did in 1 hour's worth of level 2 of pranic healing. Once you go from level 2 to level 3, that's what we call pranic psychotherapy. So that's when you're learning about different colors that would affect the energy body that we call the astral body, or your emotional body. Now, once you're working on the astral, the emotional body, that's how we're going to try and work with addictions, with trauma, with phobias, anxiety, depression. Anything that has to do with our mood is going to be specialized in level 3 of pranic healing. One of the things that is kind of tricky for people is that it's actually much easier to learn level 3 of pranic healing than it is level 2, because you're not dealing with 6 colors plus 2 divine colors. You're just dealing with a certain frequency of divine energy to clean out the emotional filters of the chakras or the energy body. So it's easier to learn. However, why it's important to go through level 1 and level 2 and then level 3 is because you're practicing on people, you're doing the meditations, so how much energy can come into your body is dependent on how big your crown chakra is. And a certain energy center, or a pipe that we call the spiritual cord, or the antakrana, or bridge of light. So the more you meditate, it's kind of like a tiny little baby thread like this for energy to go through, or is it like a big thick pipe so that much more energy can flow through you at once? So as you've been meditating regularly, what happens is it becomes much easier to do pranic psychotherapy on people because of how much divine energy can flow through your system over the last few months of your practice. Once you learn level 1 through 3, the fun comes when you can start to practice with crystals, and that's level 4 of pranic healing. So pranic crystal healing is totally different than any other type of healing modality that I've utilized in the past, because the way that we use crystals is because they're utilized as like a tool. So when you see them, they look, we call them laser crystals, or you can also have little like tumble stones that you lay over the body to let the energy kind of get absorbed into the stones and then release that way. Crystals can absorb a massive amount of energy. So then there's different ways that we actually will set them out and send lots of energy into them using the sun, using the air, using prayer or blessings over them, so that you can make it so that the crystal that you're using has like a gigantic aura around it. So when you go to use it for healing, it makes it so that the energy can flow in a lot faster, and there's different techniques that you can break up dirty energy or blockages much easier using a crystal than you would if you were just using your hands alone. Once you understand the properties of the crystals themselves, then you will also get to learn about what happens if I'm wearing a certain type of a stone on one of my fingers. Well, each of the fingers correlates to a different energy center. So if you're wearing it on one hand versus the other, that will have a different meaning, or it'll affect your energy body differently. Is it outgoing? Is it coming in through the system? What happens if I wear it as a pendant and I want to use it for like almost like psychic protection? Like if I'm going out into a really busy public area, how do I make it so my aura feels stronger? You learn about all of those types of things in the crystal healing class, so that you can program them, if it's a ring or if it's a piece of jewelry, that it can be used for your own self-healing, or to make it so that you don't get contaminated by other people around you. One of the really nice things about using crystals is because they're from the earth, they ground you while you're doing healing work. A lot of times when you're doing energy work, you can tend to get a little spacey because of how you're activating your crown center. So your upper energy body, it's like to become like a tornado, where you become real top heavy and then you become a little ungrounded, where once you start using crystals, it kind of keeps your aura big and strong to make sure that when you're working on somebody, your body is being dynamic and present in the moment, and you get a little bit less spacey because you're using crystals, which anchor the lower energy body a little bit more. Now, after you've been using crystals, you've been practicing pranic psychotherapy, advanced pranic healing for a few months, then your energy body is usually strong enough to be able to learn what's called arhatic yoga. Now, this is what Master Ko or the other master pranic healers teach, usually once or twice a year. And everything that you learn kind of gears you towards spiritual evolution. So once you can work on physical ailments for yourself and your friends or your family, then you work on the emotional components, so your energy body is getting clearer and clearer. Then it makes it so that it's much safer to work on your spiritual practices. So to make your energy body stronger so that you can be a more proficient energy healer, it's really good to learn different types of meditation. So since there's lots of great schools out there that teach you different meditation techniques, but an arhatic yoga specifically designed to make it so that some meditations make you more soft, gentle, and loving. Some of the meditations make it so that you're more dynamic, more willful. The other meditations are just to kind of do like self-healing, like cleaning out all of the energy centers in your body. And then the other one, the meditation, is just to make you more have stronger awareness or sensitivity. So if someone's not very sensitive to like feeling energy or to having a lot of intuition, those meditations are designed to make it so that you have a lot more intuition, a lot more spiritual insights, more sensitivity, but in a way that makes you feel stronger, not in a way that you feel like, oh my God, there's dirty energy everywhere or things like that. So everything that you're learning from level 1, 2, 3, 4 in pranic healing is just gently kind of guiding you to make it so that if spiritual development, spiritual practice is really what you're after, that's the safest way to do it, because you also then have a much better understanding of the energy body. How does it work? How does it move and flow? If I'm in a meditation and something feels a little off, well, then I know how to scan my chakras or my energy centers, and I can just make corrections as I go. The beauty of it is you can take classes as fast as you want. If you want to learn level 1, practice for a few months, learn level 2, practice for a few months, or a year, or however long it takes you, that's totally fine. At the same time, if you are super interested in becoming a healer or a practitioner, or maybe you're already a massage therapist, a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, and you want to add something into what you already do, then I would say just go for it and take as many of the classes as you can, as soon as you can, and just start applying it and practicing on people. As you practice on more and more people, that's the way that you'll see how this can be integrated in other different kind of medical fields as well. When my wife and I started 15 years ago, when we opened our first center, what happened was that we opened it with a licensed psychologist. And so what people would go through when they were in with like talking about all of their problems and things like that, going through traditional therapy, that anytime something would come up that they felt like it was too strong of an emotion for them to process, we would immediately start doing pranic psychotherapy on them to make it so that they can release some of the energy of it, so that way the weight of what they're talking about feels like it's a little bit easier or more manageable to talk about, or that you can have a good release and let go of a lot of those things faster, because we're working on the energy as well as working on, what you're cognitively trying to change about your life. In my day job, I'm a licensed acupuncturist, and so I use these techniques on patients all day, all the time. And so I know from my own experience of just doing standard acupuncture without pranic healing and using pranic healing in with what I'm doing, that because you're working on all the different layers of someone's body, that they tend to feel a lot better faster. In anything classes-wise what we take, we always emphasize you to come to your own conclusions. I don't expect you to believe anything that we're talking about. We really want you to take all this information in, analyze it, and once you practice it and really put it to the test, then we'll know, okay, this is for sure, it's a real deal, or this really works for me. Once you go through that experience and you know that it works for you, then you can claim like, oh yeah, this is true, this is real, this is authentic. And so that's one of the things is that our teacher, Master Choa, always advocated to make students very, very intellectual. We want you to understand this, we want you to analyze it, so that it makes intellectual sense. And as you practice it and you kind of feel it in the core of your being, that's when it starts to make more intuitive sense as well. If you're not in an area where there's a local pranic healing instructor, feel free to just comment below and we'll see what the closest state is, the closest practitioner is, to try and connect you with a different community of healers so that you can learn and grow on your own. I hope that this short talk was beneficial for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. At the end of the day, I just hope for your own inner healing, for your inner peace, and for your spiritual advancement. Atma, namaste, my friends.